Hi, welcome to day 247. Pretty close to day 250. So it's been, I think, about 100 days since we've made a donation to actualized.org. So I'd like to start by just prompting us to do that. We use a lot of the videos from actualized.org in the 500 days, and they are extremely useful. And again, it's always good to give where you're getting your spiritual food, your spiritual teachings, your spiritual inspiration from. So even though Leo doesn't even know about us, I think it's good that we all go in and make a donation to Leo throughout the curriculum. In fact, it'll be about every 100 days, so about 5 donations. So today is the day that I'm prompting you to do that, and I will do the same. Don't worry about that. I won't ask you to do anything that I don't do. So contemplate some of the value that you're getting out of the Leo videos. Let me see if I can kind of scan back and see some of the videos that we have watched. Of course, the most recent video that we watched was What's Wrong with Ego, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Before that, the paradox of developing self-trust, learning about the part of you that you need to doubt and the part of you that you need to trust. We also watched How to Harness Your Intuition. Very good video. I asked you to watch that a few times if you had time. So obviously I respected that video quite a bit. We watched a 14-minute video called What is the Ego on day 223. We watched an 83-minute video called Understanding Awareness on day 216. Okay, that was a Regina Dawn Akers video that we did the week before about investigating the I am the body idea. So we'll pass on that. But the week before that, on day 202, we watched an actualized.org video, Grasping the Illusory Nature of Thought. The week before that was the Radical Open-Mindedness video. And then before that, I think we were probably paying a little more attention to Regina Dawn Akers videos. So I think that's probably the majority of the Leo videos that we've listened to in the last 100 days. I may have missed one if I don't go back far enough, but that's okay. So I think there was the one on the deficiency cognition. Remember that one? That was a really good one. How your mind distorts reality. Yeah, that was the name of that one. The one on the deficiency cognition and the being cognition. That was an excellent video. That was in the last 100 days. So we definitely listened to some useful videos from actualize.org. So please go and make a donation at actualize.org. Thank you very much. That's my commercial. So I want to talk about then, I want to start just briefly, because I know last week I spent the entire review video talking about Leo's video on the paradox of trust. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about Leo's video this time, but we did watch that video, What's Wrong with Ego? And depending on whether you watch that video from the wrong mind or the right mind, I don't really know what your impression of the video was. I will tell you the wrong mind maybe didn't like it, but the right mind loved it. As I was listening to the video, I listened to it twice. There was tingles, excitement, giggles. In other words, the right mind really likes to have it brought to our attention how much trouble the ego causes. This is something we need to see if we're going to let it go. So really love that video. I have one of Michael Langford's books here, The Most Direct Means to Eternal Bliss. thought I would read just a little bit about what Michael Langford has to say about the ego. He refers to the ego as a virus. He says the virus pretends to be yourself. The virus creates tremendous sorrow and suffering. None of the sorrow or suffering is needed. What is needed is to delete the virus that pretends to be yourself. What is needed is to delete the imposter self. He also says the virus has many strategies to preserve the illusion that it is real and to continue the delusion that it is the real self. He says in humans, this virus is called the ego. The ego is the cause of all human sorrow and suffering. The ego is the cause of all disease, death, war, fear, anger, and violence. Although many thousands of years have passed, human beings have made almost no inward progress toward ending suffering, sorrow, war, fear, anger, violence, cheating, and lying. Thousands of years ago, humans had suffering, sorrow, war, fear, anger, violence, cheating, and lying. Now, today, currently, humans have suffering, sorrow, war, fear, anger, violence, cheating, and lying. What has kept humans in the same pool of inward unsolved problems? The ego, the imposter, has kept humans in the same pool of inward unsolved problems. Inward unsolved problems cannot be solved by looking outward. Inward problems can only be solved by looking inward. And I'll stop there. But the point is that the ego is a troublemaker, both on the personal level and then, of course, on the level of society or the world as a whole. Ramana Maharshi once said that the greatest service you can render to the world is your own self-realization. That would be transcending your own ego. Jan Fraser wrote in her book, When Fear Falls Away, that until she awoke, she didn't realize how much trouble even a nice ego like hers caused. So I think the reason the right mind loves to hear a video like the one we saw with Leo this past week, where Leo just keeps pointing out all the trouble that the ego causes, both you and society, is because that realization, when that realization dawns, that the ego really is a troublemaker, and it can awaken in us a great desire to transcend it. And that is what leads to self-realization. In fact, also in Michael Langford's book, The Most Direct Means to Eternal Bliss, he talks about choice A and choice B in chapter 5. Choice A is to choose to end the ego, right? And by dropping all unnecessary activities and focusing on your spiritual practice. Choice B is being identified with a body that is subject to suffering, disease, death, violence, anger, fear, etc. Choice B is to allow an imposter called the ego to pretend to be yourself and to control you, the robot, which we've talked about before, the puppet. Choice B is to allow an imposter that has created all the wars, diseases, death, suffering, and evil that every human has ever experienced to continue. And what he really recommends that we do is we recommend this choice A, which is to end the ego or to awaken, and this choice B, which is to remain identified with the ego and see which one really is the best choice. See which one we really want. Continue to examine these two options until our desire to transcend the ego, to awaken from the ego, is so strong that that is really what's motivating every part of our life. He says, you can write, he says, if in order to examine choice B, you can make a list of all the forms that human suffering takes. You can write on that list thousands of wars, or I would say every war that you can think of, thousands of diseases, or every disease that you can think of, thousands of forms of violence, or every form of violence that you can remember, recall, all the ways that humans deceive, hurt, and cheat each other, and every other form of human suffering that you can think of. Usually, humans look at only a small part of the ocean of human suffering. The purpose of the list is to look at the entire ocean of human suffering and the entire negative side of human life in a single glance. The purpose of the list is to see the consequences of choosing B, or of choosing to remain identified with the ego. I'm going to turn now to NTI, some of what we looked at in the last week, starting with NTI Acts chapter 14. NTI Acts chapter 14 says, your mind is split. And what it's really talking about is that within you, there is this desire to awaken, to transcend the ego. I mean, after all, that's why you're taking the 500 days to NTI, or 500 days with NTI. That's why you're still here on day 247, right? But also within you, this ego, this choice B actually still lives within you. Both choice A and choice B still live within you. And so NTI says your mind is split. We have spoken of this before. And this split will seem to persist after you have made the decision to follow this path with me. Do not let the split distress you, but do not forget to be aware of it. You must notice when the part of your mind that is not with me seeks to regain command and control by giving you ideas that seem appealing and useful to it. In other words, as we begin this spiritual path, and as we begin to attempt to surrender to spiritual intuition, and as we begin to attempt to discern between the ego and the right mind, and to live by the right mind, the ego is constantly there trying to get us to listen to it again. How it does that with you, I can't even predict. I remember Peace Pilgrim said, the ego knows the weakest spot in your armor. In other words, she was warning us that it knows how to get your attention. It knows how to get you to listen to it and turn away from the spiritual path. You know, it could be financial stuff for you. It could be power or prestige for you. It could be going back to drugs or alcohol. It could be over concern or over involvement with your family. I mean, who knows? But it knows what will catch your ear. It knows what you will listen to. So your mind is split. We've spoken of this before. And this split will seem to persist, or we'll say it will continue to persist for a time, even after we have made the decision to follow intuition, to be surrendered to intuition, even after we have made the decision to awaken. Don't be distressed about this. Don't judge yourself for this. This is just the way it is. But do not forget to be aware of it. You must notice when the part of your mind that is not aligned with awakening seeks to regain command and control by giving you ideas that seem appealing and that are useful to it. Remember that you are not it. Remember that Michael Langford called it the imposter self, right? Remember that you are not it, And remember that you have decided to walk with me, with inner intuition. Reminding yourself of what you truly want will always bring you back from any temptation that passes through the mind. And I know I've talked about this before, that remembering what I deeply want, my desire to awaken, allows me to not fall for any temptation that passes through my mind to become identified with the ego again. Reminding yourself of what you truly want will always bring you back from any temptation that passes through your mind. Sticking firmly with what you truly want will keep you firmly on the path with me. NTI Acts chapter 15 talked about how the world is chaotic. And of course, it's chaotic because everybody's listening to their own ego. And the ego is always me, my point of view, what I want, right? And with everybody going around and listening to the ego, the world is chaotic. And NTI Acts 15 says that even with an ego, we really cannot abide in chaos. You know, there's something in us that needs some order, right? It needs some order. And so this is why laws were made in the world. Laws were made so there was at least some order. And of course, all egos are going to listen to at least some of the laws some of the time. So it gives us a little more order than we would have if there were absolutely no laws. So we have laws that govern us because we're not listening to inner governance. Because we are identified with ego, we need these laws. But what NTI Acts chapter 15 points out is that when we accept the inner governance are actually the higher law. It says, when you have opened yourself to the guidance of the Holy Spirit and given your willingness that you should be led by him, it is also time to lay the laws and rules aside as laws and rules that govern you. And then it goes on to say, be not confused by this statement, right? This doesn't mean that you return to chaos. It doesn't mean you return to the ego, right? Oh, I can ignore the laws now and return to the ego. That's not what this means. But, you know, there are rules and maybe even sometimes laws that are not going to be in harmony with your guidance sometimes. For example, you could have a rule that you should always return a friend's phone call. And at some point, there may be the guidance not to return that friend's phone call. There may be even a guidance to let a friend go, right? And you may have this rule, that's just not what friends do. Oh my gosh, you know, you have to be able to lay the rule aside that you've learned in order to follow the guidance, because the guidance knows what's in everyone's best interest always, regardless of what it looks like from the egoic point of view. So once you begin to follow guidance, you need to know that the guidance is the higher law. It's the law of love. And you need to follow that guidance. And it's also important to know you don't know what the law of love is. You know, you may think, well, love would not let go of a friend, when maybe, again, love would. I remember I was on a bus in China once, a tour bus. And there was this one woman on the bus who was extremely rude to everyone. In fact, we all wore name tags, and her name tag said on it, "Fuck Americans." And everybody on the bus is American. And she sometimes just really freaked out. The children were frightened of her. And what the people on the bus wanted to do was have the tour company let go, you know, kick her off the bus. And the tour company said, well, we can't do that. She paid for the tour just like the rest of you all. So they started this petition that they passed around the bus. Now, at this time, I happened to be experiencing this really high, temporary, but enlightenment experience, which lasted about 3 weeks. It began with the experience of being an apple before I went on the trip. And during the trip, I had the experience of knowing the towel rack and the floor in the hotel room to be love. I think these are some of the videos that I've suggested that you watch. So I was in this, there were other experiences I had that aren't on video. Like I could see the beggars as just these beams of incredible light and joy, regardless of what they look like on the outside. So I was in this really spiritual high state. And, you know, this petition comes around the bus to kick this woman off of the bus. Well, when the petition came to me, you know, I didn't think about it. I didn't struggle with the decision, what would love do? What's the right thing to do here? If I had been in my egoic mind, I would have, and I might have thought, you know, well, love doesn't kick a woman off the bus, and I might not have signed the petition, right? But none of that occurred. When the petition came, I only knew to sign it. And I signed the petition and passed it on. You know, that's what I knew to do in this highly enlightened state. As it turns out, 100% of the adults on the bus signed the petition. And so the tour company felt they needed to do something. So they ended up hiring a private car and a private driver for this lady. She ended up the rest of the time in China getting a private tour, which thrilled her to death. They made sure that she was never at the same place that we were. She was happy. The people on the bus were happy. Love signed the petition to kick her off the bus. So with your egoic mind, you really don't know what love would do. Love may let go of a friend for a particular reason, and you may not ever understand the guidance. What you need to do is trust the guidance. You're not thinking, what would love do? I see people do that, and that's not it. Oh, what would love do here? And they're in their thinking mind, which means they're in their ego. You're not thinking, what would love do? You're feeling for intuition and trusting that even if you don't understand that, that's love. That's what love wants you to do. Right? You don't have to understand it. So you're letting go of these rules that you have learned for how to be with friends, how to be with parents, how to be with kids, how to be at work, how to be in society. You're letting go of all of these rules, which are great when everybody's running by ego. It's great to have rules, but now you're not running by ego anymore. You're running by intuition. It says, you do not know the laws of love, and so you cannot judge what they may be. You cannot judge the laws that are given you to govern your behavior as you walk this path with me. Therefore, I ask only one thing of you. Do not judge for yourself on what you are to do or what you are not to do, for you truly do not know. And what is right for one person, right, may be different from what is right for another. So don't judge your brother either. All that you can do is listen within for my word and trust all that is given for you is right for you to do. And all that is given to your brother is also right for him. So we're not judging other people's guidance. We're only paying attention to ours. We're not even judging whether they're listening to spiritual guidance or completely attached to ego. We let them be. We just keep turning within. Even if they are completely attached to ego, that does not distort our guidance. Our guidance knows exactly what to do in this situation while everyone around us is an ego, right? So let them be. Turn within. All that you can do is listen for my word and trust that all that is given for you to do is right for you. And all that is given for your brother is also that which is right for him. Follow your own guidance and judge not the guidance given to another. Now, remember the paradox of trust, right? We have to trust our guidance, but then there's also a part of us that we need to doubt, need to question. Listen to what NTI says. Trust not your thinking mind, which will consider and weigh and compare and judge against chaos and the desire to avoid all that may be painful. These are thoughts of fear. Thoughts of fear are only useful for bringing more fear to you. So trust not thinking mind that's trying to decide, should I follow this guidance or not? What if I don't call my friend back? She's going to get upset with me. Blah, 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 whatever, 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 right? Don't trust that mind. Don't trust that. Trust that feeling, oh, not to return the call. Or that feeling, oh, need to let this friend go, right? Trust that. This is the paradox of trust. It says, judge with the heart by not judging. That's what the heart does. It doesn't judge at all. Judge with the heart by not judging, but by noticing its subtle non-judgment and joy. This is the way of knowing. This is the way of finding the path you are led to follow. The one who follows the guidance of the Holy Spirit will know his true self rather than the imposter self, because he will know his own authority, the inner authority that comes from the law of love. He will not seek for the way that is best for him. He will ask, which means I'm not going to try and figure out what I should do here. I'm just going to tune into intuition. He will not judge what he is to do or how he is to do it. He will just know it through intuition when the time has come for him to know, not before he's supposed to know. That's one thing you have to get used to with guidance. You may know something's coming and may wonder, what the heck am I going to do? But the guidance doesn't come in advance. It comes when you're there. So you have to learn to stay in this unknowing state, knowing that guidance will give you everything you need to know about what you're to do or say or not do or not say in the moment. And you need to be comfortable not knowing until that time arrives. So he will not judge what he is to do or how he is to do it. He will know it when the time has come for him to know. He will not fight or argue with his brothers about how things are to be done. He will leave all things to the Holy Spirit. They're allowed to follow their guidance, whether it's spiritual intuition or ego, right? Let them be. He will not fight or argue with his brothers about how things are to be done. He will leave all things to the Holy Spirit, trusting in his way. I trust my guidance and in the love that is his brother's. So that was from NTI Acts chapter 15. I have some highlights from NTI Acts chapter 16 as well. If you leave all things to me, I will guide you in all things, everything. You don't have to think about anything ever again. You just keep tuning into intuition, including what to wear, what to eat, what to do with your free time, right? If you leave all things to me, I will guide you in all things. You will not need to give thought or care to anything you are to do or not do. You will find as you follow my guidance that you are welcome in the heart of God. My experience of this is that you're going to discover that you're loved by the universe, by that which you cannot see, but you will discover that you are loved by it. I mean, it will give you positive feedback along the way. It will give you gifts along the way that you did not expect, that really are saying you're following the right way, you're loved, you're going to be taken care of, right? So you will find as you follow my guidance that you are welcome in the heart of God. As you realize the welcome that God has given you, you shall give him welcome. This is going to help you lay down the ego and surrender fully, totally into awakening, because you'll know that everything is going to be okay. You've learned what love is, and you are ready to fall into the arms of love without any need to take care of me, without any me left. So as you realize the welcome that God has given you, you shall give him welcome, for love cannot say no to a request for love. So as you know your Father's yes to you, you shall also say yes, welcome to your Father, right? And that's awakening. So that's what I have to read from today. Now, tomorrow, you will begin a reading in NTI Acts chapter 19, which is the last part of NTI Acts chapter 19, where it kind of briefly differentiates between the ego and the right mind, right? Egoic reasoning and right reasoning. And you really want to pay attention to that because you want to start to learn the difference within yourself. Remember, your mind is split. Part of the mind is egoic reasoning, and part of the mind, which I would probably call the heart, is the right reasoning that's pointing to awakening. So you want to learn to feel the difference. Over the next 2 weeks, we're really going to be looking at, first of all, remember you're free. So we're going to be looking at, do I want to follow the right reasoning, the guidance, or do I want to follow ego? And then if you want to follow right reasoning, you'll be making those choices. And if you want to follow ego, you're going to be observing that choice. What am I getting out of that? Right. So we'll be doing this for a couple of weeks. So it's important that you start to know the difference between the ego and the right reason. And again, the first reading that we do this week will give some information about that. So I think that's it for now. So it's been nice talking into the camera, but I know that I'm talking to you. Don't forget to go and make your donation, actualized.org. I will go and do the same because we're almost to day 250. All right. So it's time for Leo to get his donation for all of the wonderful gifts that he's giving us. And I'll see you next week. Bye.